Hey Garth, how's it going?
Jason, great. Highlight of the week right here. Here
Oh
we
man,
go.
we are back, and this is an episode that people are going to want to listen to. Lean in, get your cup of
Yeah.
coffee, get ready. David's coming at us, and this is going to be something else, isn't
Yeah. He's coming at us through the screen, as you like to say.
it? He's coming at us through the screen and through your earbuds. But before we get
Yeah.
there, Garth, has there ever been a TV character who you wanted to like, but you just didn't? Other people told you should like them, but you just couldn't get your head around them.
Um, I don't know. I tend to see like the best in people, and if they're off their game, I tend to give them a lot of grace and room. Um, Maybe like Toby from The Office, you
Yeah.
know? Some people were like, oh, but look where he's coming from. And
Hmm.
I don't know. That's a tough one for me. What about you?
Well, I don't know about me either, but I could tell you that David isn't a fan of Ted in season 1 and 2. And if our listeners are going to get there, they have to listen then to this podcast. But he brings up some really interesting points about Ted, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought of someone.
Okay,
I
let's
thought
have
of
it.
someone. So it's from the comedy Shrinking.
Mm, I know the one.
Have you
Yeah,
seen that show?
yeah, I love the show.
You love that show. Okay,
I do.
I can't stand the show. Can't stand
What?
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we
yeah.
go.
My favorite character is Harrison Ford because
Hmm.
he is the one who actually lays down some guidelines. He lays down some like non-negotiables.
Hmm.
Like everyone else is just sort of bending over backwards to help people, and sometimes helping is harming.
You know what, Garth? That is a perfect segue to this podcast because today David brings it. He's a junior high teacher by training, but a
Yeah.
professor of psychology down in Texas. And he has worked with some of the biggest, brightest minds in the world, including Carol Dweck, Angela Duckworth, and he really shares the secrets behind motivating youth, but also, creating status and respect and allowing students to feel that. I am
Yeah,
just
yeah.
compelled by this conversation.
Talks a lot about the protector, and that's why I don't enjoy Shrinking. There's too much
Hmm.
protection going on
Hmm.
between the protection and enforcer, and the middle road here. The third path is this mentoring approach. He also drops in some great movie references: The Right Stuff, Goonies, Top Gun, Interstellar gets referenced a little bit. We talk about artificial intelligence. Um, it's a phenomenal podcast, folks. 10 to 25 is David Yeager's book. If you don't have it, pick it up. It's amazing. And if you want to, you can take his recently launched masterclass where he runs a masterclass, like trademark masterclass with Carol Dweck. So
Yes.
like it's just an amazing podcast. We're so thrilled to have him on, like really humbled that he would take the time, really appreciate it. So enjoy.
Enjoy the show.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow.
Hey there, Lasso and leadership fans. Welcome back to Lassoing Leadership, the podcast where we channel the empathy, the heart of Ted Lasso into real world leadership. This is season 3. We've introduced Beard's Book Club, natural evolution from season 1, started thinking and reflecting about leadership as per different episodes. And then season 2, where we talked about putting that leadership into action. We had amazing guests. And now we're really deepening our understanding of the research, the very different research that supports leading in a new way, a kinder, more compassionate way to lead. So I'm Garth Nichols, and as always, I've got my co-host here and fellow student of leadership, Jason Rogers.
Hey, Garth, it's great to be here. I'm really excited about this conversation. So let's get right to it. In the theme of having incredible educators, authors, and researchers, today is not an exception. We are here to welcome psychologist, speaker, and author of an absolutely incredible book that's applicable to leaders, educators, thinkers all over North America. And I think its time is now. So let's get right into it, Garth.
Yeah, we're welcoming David Yeager. He's with us to discuss his most recent book, 10 to 25. I picked this book up off of a recommendation. I didn't put it down until I was done, and then I've been picking it up ever since because in education, this is such a vital time of life. And I'm just so excited to have you here. So David, welcome to the podcast. Could you take a moment and just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. And thanks for having me. I'm David Yeager. I'm a psychology professor at the University of Texas at Austin. I focus on adolescence, developmental and social psychology are my areas. In general, I focus on big challenges with behavior change. So how do you help young people do the kinds of things that they should do for their own well-being and for society, but they might not always be able to muster the motivation to do? And then how do we do it in a way where we honor, value, and respect young people, where they're kind of intrinsically motivated, they're engaged, they're proactive, that kind of stuff. And also where they show good well-being. And I came to that kind of work formally. I was a middle school teacher. So I taught in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was 6 through 8 English and K through 8 PE. And then during lunch period, I was English as a second language. So it was a busy time, 8 preps a day. You know, I ran the book club, the computer club. I coached basketball, 6th and 8th grade. I fixed the internet when it broke. So it was like working 100 hours a week. I made $12,000 a year, and it was a great time in my life. And then I left the classroom in part because I felt like I wanted to understand how science could help people to lead better. And I ended up at Stanford University, where in my second year, I started working with Carol Dweck, the author of Mindset, where she became my advisor. And I finished after a few years and then started collaborating with a friend of mine who was graduating at Penn at the time, named Angela Duckworth, who went on to write a book called Grit. And so, we've just done a lot of experiments and done a lot of science and tried to figure out the puzzle of motivating and engaging young people in these difficult times.
Well,
Wow.
Even in your introduction, you've just dropped 2 huge names there that are like revered in educational circles. And you, my friend, are there as well. Yeah.
So, David, if you hit Jennifer Wallace, you've hit the holy trinity of academics who I love, and you've absolutely being 1 degree separated from them and actually connecting with you is a true highlight for myself and Garth and for our listeners. So, without any further ado,
I'm happy to be a source of secondhand coolness for you.
Well, let's try to get to firsthand here. So, Dave, your book makes a bold claim that 10 to 25, the ages 10 to 25 are the most consequential years of life. As junior high teachers, I'm one as well. This resonates with me, but for our listeners, why is this developmental window so significant for our youth? Why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, well, I think I argue that it's a window where the strategies we use to motivate young people really can change and be different, and they're at a minimum where there's different things we have to pay attention to. Obviously every window of life is important. At any age you could fall off a cliff and die, and that would be important for the rest of for your survival. But adolescence is definitely a place we worry about because it's where identities are formed. You become a certain kind of person, but also certain behaviors that could have long-term consequences start happening for the first time, whether it's car crashes or drug addiction or dropping out of school. So there's certainly a fear among parents and teachers and so on that we're going to screw it up. And if we screw it up, then we screwed up society and harmed someone's life. And so given that fear, then you'd think people would be really motivated to figure out how to deal with young people and prevent those insane consequences that could come up at any time for youth. And yet we don't. And yet we just say, basically, they're the worst, and let's lock them in a closet until they're 30. Like the minute puberty strikes, I don't want to talk to them. I mean, if you have a baby, people come up and like, oh, it's such an adorable baby. I'm so jealous. Look at the chubby cheeks. If you have a teenager, though, they're like, what are you doing? And if you're a teacher, that means you chose to be around teenagers, and they're like, bless your heart. And I guess it's weird. Like, why have we given up on an entire developmental stage in human life? And so I think that, rather than fearing the impacts of adolescence, we need to start learning how to harness it. So that way we can approach this age range with confidence.
Yeah, that's well said. I love the baby approach to the baby. That's awesome. In your book, in terms of how we approach this, you talk a little bit about the mentor approach. And it includes honoring perspectives, inquiry-based dialogue, openness and setting high expectations. Can you talk to us a little bit about, as leaders, as mentors, as teachers, with this age group, what's the role of setting high expectations?
Yeah. So in the book, I just to back up, I first try to characterize like the wrong way to interact with young people. And specifically the wrong way is what you might call shame, blame, tell, and yell. That as much as we wish it would work. I mean, our lives would be so much easier if you could just see a kid do something wrong, immediately yell that they should do something different. And then they're like, you know, you have a point. And then they just did it.
I hear you, Mom. I hear you, Dad.
Yeah. Like you've convinced me. I'm ready to go. I'll ask you for feedback in just a moment. But like that doesn't work. And it doesn't work in part because it threatens the primary social motivation of young people, which is the desire to feel a sense of status and respect. And humiliation is by definition something that causes shame and therefore forfeits status and respect. And so the alternative is something that taps into what the adolescent brain is most craving. It's social success. And then that gets us to something that I call the mentor mindset. And look, I'm not saying everyone needs to turn around tomorrow and be a quote mentor, like, you know, Athena in the Odyssey, spending 20 years with Telemachus, guiding him through every life choice. And it's more like, what I mean by mentor is how the National Academy of Sciences in the US defines it, which is you align your resources and expertise with the long-term benefit and well-being of the young person you're working with. And that might be one conversation and it might be a bunch of meetings. It's everything in between. But if you're doing that, you're invested in their success by using your resources and expertise to help them grow and improve. Now, that raises the possibility of a different kind of flaw. And the different kind of flaw, rather than yell, tell, shame, and blame, is to have very low standards and be just very caring, right? If you do that, of course, you're there for someone, but they're not growing. It's not in their long-term best interest because you're not pushing them. I often say when I talk to schools that, like, you know, students often want easy work they've already mastered, right? Teachers, when they're worried about stressing students out, give them easy stuff where they can just retrieve concepts they've already mastered and routinized. But the whole point of schooling is to learn things you don't already know. That's why society sets aside this massive amount of resources. It's not to like rehearse things that kids already have memorized. It's to learn new things. And that inherently feels hard, right? Because you're changing your conceptual models, you're changing your knowledge, you're confronting misconceptions. And so the two flaws of shame, blame, tell, and yell, I call enforcer, overprotect, low standards, I call protector. The alternative to those is to basically take the best of both, and that's what I call mentor. So take the enforcer's high expectations, but the protector's high support. And then with that, have high standards and high support. And then you're mentoring in the sense that you're aligning your resources with their long-term growth and well-being. And that feels respectful because you're expecting a lot of them, which implies that you have a high opinion of them, right? But on the same time, I'm walking the journey with you so that you could do impressive stuff. You can earn a meaningful, prestigious reputation as someone who can do something above and beyond.
So David,
beautiful.
We have a lot of middle to senior leaders, Canadian schools listening to this podcast. And I just want to have this straight talk with David with respect to, if you are giving advice to a principal who's walking into a junior high staff and faculty meeting before school starts on the first day, and you're going to give them the one bit of advice as to how to best motivate this group of adolescents who we want to see and know that they matter and feel significant, how would you advise that principal to start the year off on the right foot? What kind of words of advice would you be giving?
I think that, the first thing is, in our heart of hearts, most people do want to take the mentor approach. They want to respect young people. What I say is that if you work in a school, then you went to regular school and then you finished it and you're like, I'm going to do more of this. And then you went to college and then you're like, I think I'm not ever going to leave school. And then you got a job in a school, right? You love everything about it. You like turning in homework on time. You like pleasing people, having an organized bulletin, whatever it is, you like school. And so deep down, you want to do the right thing. And obviously, the right thing is not to shame and blame and yell at students or be a pushover and let them learn nothing. Of course, you know that, but life gets in the way, right? And so I don't ever assume that somebody who messes something up is a bad actor. Instead, what I assume is that, first of all, they might have just emphasized one dimension or the other too much. They over-indexed on rigor or they over-indexed on support, and they need to figure out the balance. But also, sometimes they actually are doing the right balance, but the students don't know it because the students are used to teachers being enforcers or protectors. And I see this a lot. Like, I write about this guy, Sergio Estrada, in my book, who's just a legendary educator. And like, believe me, there's a lot more Sergio content. My publisher was like, it's too much Sergio content. I'm like, no, it's not enough. And so I love this guy. And I hired him. We work together. I respect him deeply. I love everything about him. But he's tough, demanding. All you have to know is that he teaches at one of the lowest income high schools in Texas. And 5% of his kids are college ready if you looked at SATs. And every year, 95% pass college level physics in his class, including all the COVID years. So I interviewed a bunch of his students till I was like, how is this guy doing it? And they all talked about crying, like a lot. They're like, oh, first day of class, we do this hard project and I'm just crying. I'm never going to get an A. And I'm just like, that's interesting. And then I interviewed another student. They're like, yeah, this happened. And then I was crying. And then Sergio shows me like an email he gets from a student. She's like, Mr. Estrada, I'm up late. I'm trying to do the problem set. I'm crying. I can't do it. I'm like, there's a lot of crying happening. And the reason why is not because he's humiliating anybody. He's not like talking down to them. They're crying because physics is legitimately hard. For thousands of years, human beings did not understand Newtonian mechanics and how force and momentum work. And now we expect every 17-year-old in the country to learn it in like 7 months. And he takes that responsibility seriously. He's like, I refuse to let you leave my class not knowing this discipline, right? I care about you too much. But students don't know that it's the sign of care and concern at the beginning of the year. They just think he's having impossible standards to make them fail and disappoint their family and their ancestors. And it's like, he has to be transparent. He's got to be clear from day one. Here's why I assign you hard stuff you can't do right away. Here's what it means if you don't do well on that stuff. Here's what it means if you fail your first test. Here's what it means if you get a question wrong when I ask you what you think. Here's what it means if I ask you a question and then wait for 10 seconds while you're thinking. And he doesn't say, I'm thinking you're a dumbass. But that's what they're worried. Instead, he says, I care about you too much to do the thinking for you. Because if I do, you won't carry this forward.
Yes.
And every year, my students get internships at NASA. This is true. Like, they do this like big, like rocket, there's like a rocket camp that they go to and they run circles around
space
everybody.
Camp,
they get interns. It's like JIST. It's like Jet Propulsion Lab summer camp, but it's like space camp. And, but it's all physics based. And they do great. They get scholarships to major universities, but it's because they own the thinking, not him. But if he just sits there and asks an open-ended question and waits forever, their default interpretation is that that's torture and he's like masochist, right?
Yeah.
Sadist. And like, so he has to be transparent. So I think the first starting point for mentor mindset is, if this mentor mindset stuff resonates with you, you're like, that's what I do. Then my next question always is, do your students know it? Or are they going to view you as an enforcer? And then when you're flexible on your grading deadlines or you offer office hours, are they going to view you as a pushover protector and take advantage of you? And if so, you haven't been clear enough about your standards.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why chapter 5 of my book is the first of the mentor mindset practices, because I think it's something anyone can do right away.
Yeah, it's so important. I think one of the things that you mentioned also, which I think is really significant in your book, it stands in the way of this, is this what you argue against the neurobiological incompetence model. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so partially this is inside baseball, maybe nobody cares about, but when I learned that if you're writing an ideas book, like a narrative book, you care about the protagonist or whatever. But like, I have some protagonists in my book, but they're meant to drive a scientific narrative. But if you read like Tom Wolfe's books, like The Right Stuff, the protagonist and the antagonist are always ideas. And the idea is like some dominant thing that everyone takes for granted that he has now articulated. If you read this, maybe no one here reads books anymore. Maybe no one cares about the 80s, but in the 80s, the book was called The Right Stuff. And it's about Chuck Yeager and the Apollo now it was not Apollo, Mercury program. And the protagonist of the book is the ziggurat of status, which is this imaginary pyramid of status that all of the fighter pilots fight to be at the top of. And anytime you screw up, you're down a rung. And like, which also is the plot of Top Gun, but that stole it from The Right Stuff, right? And so similar to that, I needed a protagonist and an antagonist that was an idea for the book. And it occurred to me that rather than just say, do mentor mindset, it's good, the better way to go about it is to say, well, why wouldn't people do the mentor mindset, right? It sounds like something you'd want to do. High standards, high support. Great, I'm a good person. And the reason why you wouldn't do it is because you or society has portrayed young people as lacking potential and ability to think, to be independent, to be motivated, to be engaged, to be responsible and reliable. And if you believe that basically teenagers lack a prefrontal cortex, that hormones have turned them into like idiots who can't think ahead, can't show self-control, can't be disciplined, can't plan. If you think that's what puberty has done to the teenage brain, then you would never, like if a teenager did something like made a bad choice, you would never be like, I'm really curious, like what, can you walk me through your decision-making process? You would never be curious because your answer is that they're dumb, right? Because of their puberty took their prefrontal cortex away, right? You're not curious about their internal logic. And so that's the antagonist idea. And you see it a lot, right? I mean, and for good reason, people hold on to these models because they don't want to blame young people for like crimes and stuff like that and send them to prison forever. They want to say, you're still maturing. And I get it. I understand that. And young people are capable of goal-directed behavior. It's just a fact. It's just not always the goals that we want them to be pursuing. So like if you want them to factor a worksheet of trinomials, they're like, no, I've never heard of this stuff. I don't know what you're talking about. And you're pulling your hair out. And so they don't do it, right? But if you ask them to sneak out of the house and go to a party, it's like they're planning 19 steps ahead. They're like, who do I have to lie to? Where's a map of the sewers? Like they're excellent at goal-directed behavior.
Map of the sewers.
They're plotting their escape. Like it's like Goonies, and, or like ask, like if they want to, if they want to impress someone they have a crush on, they'll spend months learning to play guitar and their fingers hurt and they're staying up all night and they're like asking their friends how to do this riff and they're watching it on YouTube. Like the most discipline and self-control you've ever seen. And it's like the most mundane thing. Every kid in the world can do it. And then we turn around and be like, oh, kids can't learn. They're no self-control. It's like, yes, they do. They just for stuff that they care about. And so that suggests that the trick is to reject this neurobiological incompetence model. And rather than thinking of like kids are getting a puberty-induced lobotomy, instead, it's usually how we're communicating with them and how we frame things. It's more like we've created a nagging-induced lobotomy where they're not going to listen to us the more we try to grown-splain everything to them.
Grown-splain, yes. In your book, you say, what if the problem with adolescence is actually us? And you also say, let's rehabilitate the reputation of puberty. I love those concepts. Listen, David, do you see this in pockets? Do you see organizations, areas that are doing this already really well?
Yeah, I mean, part of what I tried to do in the book was to go find exemplary individuals and write about them. Sergio's one of them. I also found the NBA's best shooting coach, a guy named Chip England. I think played in Canada at some point in a professional basketball, not NBA, different league. For 17 years, he was the Spurs shooting coach. 3 years ago, he was brought over to the Thunder, and then they went from the worst shooting team to the best shooting team, won the NBA title. And he doesn't do it by yelling at people and saying, your shot stinks. I'm going to break you down and start from scratch. He doesn't say that. He's more like, you're a good shooter. You need a tune-up. And I'm going to walk the journey with you every step of the way through the ups and the downs until you're making the shot reliably. And I'm going to take away things that are making you inefficient. But I want to keep the core you that makes you a good player. And all of a sudden players now trust him with their most valued thing, which is their shot. And so he's done that every organization he's been a part of. And there's some good books about Greg Popovich at the Spurs and how he creates a combination of demand and support.
Yeah.
Dan Coyle writes about it in the Culture Code, for example.
Yeah.
I found there's it's called a bridge program at Vanderbilt University. So it's meant to increase the rate at which students get a PhD in physics. students from all groups, all backgrounds. And it's run by this amazing guy, Kayvon Stassen, who's an astrophysicist. Basically what happens is rather than admit people based on their standardized test score, so in the US, we use the GRE math as the main test. And it's like, if you're not above a 700, no one looks at your application. But getting above a 700 is mostly a function of having gone to a wealthy high school in America, because it's just high school math that you're doing. And so if you're like a low-income kid, went to a bad high school, fell in love with physics in college, and work in a lab, and you're like, got telescopes all over, dripping telescopes, like you'll never get a PhD in astrophysics because your GRE score is probably low. Kayvon thought that was dumb. So he instead created a program where you come work in a lab for 2 years and publish in professional physics journals. And then guess what the number one predictor of success in professional physics is? It's not your high school math score. It's publishing professional physics in professional physics journals.
Yeah.
So then you're like, get admitted to the program because you're already doing professional physics, and it's not a risk because these are motivated, engaged people. And then he sets up mentoring with them. But the standard is very high. And again, I interviewed not all, but I interviewed a lot of people in this program, and they too talk about crying all the time, like Sergio's class. And guess why they're crying? Because world-class professional physics is super duper hard. Like, here's a real project that Kayvon is on. By the way, Kayvon won the MacArthur Genius Award last fall, specifically for this mentoring stuff that I had written about in my book. Not because of me, but coincidentally.
Yeah.
Correlation is not causation. But it means I chose a good guy to write about. That's all I'm saying. And here's a real project he works on. Landing bombs on asteroids so that they can blow them up before they destroy the Earth. That's not a movie. That's a real project. And he's actually the PI of that project, right? Like another one is like finding planets that the human being species could escape to if we destroy the Earth. Like
Interstellar.
It kind of matters that the math is right. And so he's not going to bring people in and give them a pat on the back and be like, oh, thanks. Because what if like Americans or what if humans spend 100 years at light speed traveling to some distant planet and we're like, oh, I got the math wrong. Turns out there's no atmosphere. Like it's important. So like they're crying because he has a ridiculously high standard that is the legitimate standard, but he's relentless in how he supports them. And in the last 15 years, he's graduated 100 PhDs, mostly or almost exclusively women of color who are first gen, who would be underrepresented in physics. And then they have gone on to be the first ever Black first author of a Nature paper, first ever tenured physicist at Princeton. That's a Black woman. It's that kind of stuff. And like half of the diversity at NASA are graduates of his PhD program. And so it's just really incredible stuff, but it's not enforcer, I'm going to cut everyone out of here if you're not smart enough. And it's not protector, intellectual pats on the back. It's like super hard, but super supportive.
Now listen, David, if this isn't driving people to your book, I don't know what will. This is really compelling on all levels. I think we have two questions as we wrap up. I'm going to ask one, then Garth's going to bring us back to our namesake here. But my question is, you have to have an opinion about AI and its impact on motivation and development and the brain in 10 to 25. What's your hot take on AI in schools, and what thinking are you doing around it?
Yeah. So as a scientist, I'm always skeptical of bold claims that everything's going to change because there's a lot of boosterism. And frankly, there's a ton of money right now in startups that serve mediocre products, don't actually solve problems, and that have now been bought up by the private equity firms who are more interested in scaling them than they are making them actually good. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's very hard to be a school leader right now and to know what to do because, like, here's an example. And this isn't a for-profit product, but Khan Academy. Have you guys heard of Khan Academy? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Khanmigo,
Yeah. So they have Khanmigo. It's an AI chatbot. Like, go to Khanmigo and say, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so stressed out. I don't think I can do this problem. The answer it gives is so bad. Like, and we've tested this systematically. And it'll say like, I hear that you're really stressed. I'm so sorry about that. Here's a video you can go watch on motivation. And remember, you can learn anything, 5 exclamation points. It's like, that's the worst thing you could say besides like, you're dumb, but like just false optimism and giving you homework to go watch a video. and you can learn anything. Like the person just told you they can't learn this specific thing. What do you mean I can learn anything? Like, why would I believe you? Sounds like you're not listening to me. And like, they just scaled that, right? Like they created it, no testing, let's go. And like millions of people are using it. That's a problem. And they're a nonprofit, they're trying to help. But all these other things. So first is just skepticism on what basically, if you're using an AI agent that is generating text that's directly interfacing with a student, that's like saying you want them to be exposed to all of Reddit right now.
Yeah.
It's like, and maybe there's some good, Reddit's great for like identifying a bug that I found. I don't know. But like, there's a lot of things on Reddit you don't want anyone saying to a kid. And certainly just people give bad advice, it's just
one of my favorite things is to remind people that, that some of these platforms were trained on all of the emails from Enron. Look out. That is not the best of humanity right there. So,
yeah, well, there's a whole complicated story about that, but but yeah, like, all the transcripts of every YouTube video, and there's a lot of garbage YouTube videos. So I think part of it is there's all kinds of safety stuff that has not been regulated, and we don't even know what's bad because there are no benchmarks. The benchmarks that exist are like for hate speech or being rude. But like, what about the fact that the AI models are really sycophantic and try to suck up to you? And so if you're like if you're a 15-year-old trying to quit cross country when you really shouldn't, it'll be like, it sounds really hard. I think you should try something different.
Right. Totally.
And if you go to ChatGPT and say, I'm really stressed at my job, I don't think I can do it, I'm thinking of leaving, it'll say you should leave your job. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good message a lot of times.
There was an article,
not more information.
There was an article in The Atlantic called Artificial Intelligence Will Solve Loneliness. And that's the worst thing we could ever do. People just becoming so infatuated or in a bubble of why would I go anywhere else? They would challenge me. They would tell me I'm wrong. I can just go to one of these platforms and just be told how great I am all the time.
Yeah. I think that the off the shelf models really do that. And they're a problem. And part of me feels like people will get tired of how bad the output is. Because we've done some testing that basically if you show people just AI generated. So we did a study where we took a bunch of teenage dating scenarios. Like, someone liked my thing on Snapchat. Does that mean they like me back? Or should I contact them right now or whatever? And we asked moms what the kids should do. And then we asked ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is like half standard deviation better than moms. So not good. Moms are terrible at dating advice in 2025, it turns out. It could have been dads, it just happened to be moms. But then we trained a specialized model on lots of relationship experts' advice, including like psychologists who actually know what they're talking about, and teen influencers who are like actually good influencers giving good advice. And that model on the first round looked the same as ChatGPT, but the more you saw the AI, the less you liked it. And the more you saw the specialized model, the more you liked it. So I do think that there are going to be specialized models that are really well trained that will serve specific purposes. The problem is there's no evaluative criteria to rank and determine whether some model is better than another, and consumers can't tell the difference. So they're just going to go to the junk models. And that is a big issue. The other big thing I hear about schooling in AI is like, doesn't this mean they don't need to be writing anymore? Or aren't they just going to cheat on everything? And I've been on so many committees, professor committees, and the first thing people bring up is cheating. And I was like, why do you have the kind of assignment that you could cheat on with AI? Like, why are you having assignments where they can just regurgitate what you said in 3 sentences?
Yeah.
That's a bad assignment. Like, they're right to outsource that to AI because you're not asking them to be an authentic thinker. And so, like, a plausible scenario is that teachers realize they're out of a job if all they are is regurgitating facts, because AI can do that better. And their unique value add is transferring responsibility for deep thinking to students and adapting, like, thinking of good open-ended questions, challenging student thinking, sticking with things when they're uncomfortable, knowing when to go to a peer to chime in, to build on your idea. And like, those are assignments that could be
Yeah.
done, collaborative group projects, group presentations, students could audio record themselves making an argument or not. There's all kinds of things that could be done that is not really susceptible to AI. And frankly, if we didn't have dumb assignments, students would probably want to do them, and they wouldn't outsource them to AI. Part of the problem is we create this like insane rat race of grades and impressing college admissions officers by completing totally arbitrary assignments just to please a teacher that has no accountability for doing something interesting. And then we're shocked that they look for a shortcut. And it's like, why don't you do meaningful stuff? So anyway, that's kind of my answer is like, yeah, but like, we should stop moralizing teenagers as lazy, short-sighted, trying to weasel out of everything, and start asking ourselves why we're not getting better assignments.
Here.
I think that we're at a crossroads here. Either this podcast is gonna go for another 8 hours about how we talk about how we're gonna
I have a lot of
revolutionize
opinions I could share.
education. Oh, David, this has been amazing. I want you to share one last opinion, and you've got to get going. So appreciate this, but do you think that Ted Lasso was a good leader?
I do not think that the first 2 seasons he was a mentor mindset leader. I think he was a protector. I think he had no standards and no interest in actually coaching soccer. Now, if you have professional soccer players, then they supply their own motivation, I guess, and they have the incentive to work hard. So maybe he was over-indexing on support. But I think he's a stereotypical protector, especially in the first season. It's like, that's why they got relegated. They're not a good team. And then the third season, I thought he was more of a mentor. He had difficult conversations with people. He pushed them to get better. He made people adapt. And there, he never was like judgmental, shame, blame, yell, and tell. Like, he was always in someone's corner. The problem is you can be in someone's corner, but then not push them to do anything, and then they don't get better. So that's my take on Ted Lasso.
Awesome. Hey, where can people find your work?
I recently released a masterclass. It's on the website Masterclass. I'm not self-labeling myself a master. It's a third party gave me this label. And it's with me and Carol Dweck. It's called The Power of Mindset. And we have special guests. So 2 characters that I write about in my book are in the video. So you can see him on video, not just read about him. And then also the quarterback, Steve Young, who likes our work, and I'd given a talk for his organization before. And so he agreed to join the masterclass and talk about how growth mindset helped him. So that's a good one. And then, people can check out the book, and then I just have my nerd professor website at Texas, so people can check out our nerd papers if they want.
Wow.
David, I'm on LinkedIn too.
You know what? You have the Lassoing leadership stamp of approval. You are providing a masterclass in this stuff right in front of us. And
seriously,
that was an absolute clinic you ran. And I hope that this is driving people to your book. I think it's a must read, and what you brought to this podcast and to our audience, we really, really value it. And thank you for your passion and your engagement in this area. It's going to make education better up here in Canada. So thanks for taking the time with that. And one last thing, David, as we wrap up the show, can you send us off with a little bit of Lasso style here?
Keep leading the Lasso way from the third season.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Coffee, grab your seat. It's time to learn, it's time to meet. Garth and Jason setting the tone. Leadership lessons to take back home. Lassoing leadership sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow. Lassoing leadership sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. lessons from Ted